Welcome everybody to our TIF talk. I'm Andrea Millers with Endogastric Solutions. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We're very happy to see you here. And as you all know, we have TIF talks every Tuesday, but today, or tonight I should say, is a very special one for us, and we're happy to have you join. As you know or may not know, April is Esophageal Cancer Awareness Month, and we are kind of gonna bring awareness to esophageal cancer and meet some very special guests that we are going to have. So just to give you a little background, or I should say agenda for this evening, we will be speaking to our own CEO, Skip Baldino, CEO of Endogastric Solutions. So he will be coming up. In addition to that, we will be speaking to Carrie Bride and Ellison Bride from the Bride family, and you'll hear more stories about Walt Bride, who is very near and dear to our heart. In addition to that, we will have a doctor segment and speak with our Dr. Gilbert Simone. He will be joining us as well. And then you'll hear some patient stories from friends and family. So this is a very exciting evening for us, as well as speaking to Mindy Mordecai, who is the CEO and president of ECAN, which is Esophageal Cancer Action Network. So it's a fun-filled, packed event tonight, and so we are happy to have you here. We can't thank you enough. Before we kick it off, I would like to introduce our very own CEO, Skip Baldino. He has been in the healthcare industry for over 35 years and also in the GI space for over a decade. So Skip, welcome, and thank you for being here with us this evening.
Thank you, Andrea. We appreciate that, and good evening, everybody. We are excited to have our featured event tonight, and we have, as Andrea said, we have a number of guests for this important event. If I can, I'll go over some of our thoughts about our guests. So Dr. Gil Simone, he has spent most of his adult life treating and caring for patients suffering from Gerd, esophageal cancer, and other foregut diseases. He is a highly experienced doctor known for his friendly bedside manner, his communication, and his responsiveness. So welcome, Dr. Gil Simone. Mindy Mordecai, she's been an incredible advocate for educating patients on the need for early detection of esophageal cancer. And as you'll hear from her, she started a foundation called ECAN. We appreciate her joining our team tonight. Carrie and Ellison Bride. Carrie is the wife, and Ellison is the daughter of and two members of our EGS family. Carrie's husband and Ellison's dad was a sales professional for EGS. Walt died of esophageal cancer several years ago, and I must tell you, it impacted all of us and made our mission that much more personal to attack and beat this deadly disease. Walt was an incredible human being. He cared deeply about his family, his customers, and right up to the end of his time on this earth, he literally was working to advance the safety around Gerd and esophageal cancer. He epitomized the saying of "you before me," and we actually at Endogastric Solutions, we started an annual award for that person within our company or our medical community that best exemplified Walt Bride. We really genuinely loved the man and felt he did a great job for his customers. And again, you'll hear from the family today. We also have, as Andrea said, two patients here tonight to tell their story. And it's actually two different stories. Dylan Grove is a patient who chose early intervention with TIF to prevent any esophageal cancer or any disease state advancement. So he'll tell his story. And then Mike will also tell his story. But Mike is a cancer survivor and also had the TIF2 procedure. So we all appreciate their insights, and we look forward to learning from them. Let me underscore a few important points from my point of view for those people listening to the call before switching back to the main reason we're here, which is the other participants. Number one, Endogastric Solutions, we are 100% focused on treating Gerd, which stands for gastroesophageal reflux. An estimated 1 out of every 5 Americans has Gerd. Gerd is a chronic condition caused by changes in the gastroesophageal valve that allows contents to flow from the stomach into the esophagus. Left untreated, it can be a lifelong disease that often leads to significant bothersome symptoms. But also, one of the symptoms or one of the long-term side effects could be esophageal cancer or Barrett's esophagus, which develops into esophageal cancer. So our TIF procedure, it stands for transoral incisionless fundoplication. It's an innovative endoscopic solution that treats the root cause of Gerd. The treatment is a proven treatment option for Gerd. In the U.S., our physician partners have successfully performed over 25,000 procedures. Also, our physician community has published over 140 peer-reviewed publications in respected GI and surgical journals, including 5-year randomized clinical trial results that show that 3/4 of the patients who have had the TIF procedure are off their daily PPIs 5 years post their TIF procedure. So with that background on Gerd, our TIF procedure, and the fact that Gerd can lead to esophageal cancer, I hope that you'll find tonight's talk informational. Most importantly, from my perspective, is please recognize the persistent heartburn and reflux symptoms should not be taken lightly. Esophageal cancer may not show symptoms early on. Please talk to your doctors if you have any frequent heartburn symptoms. You have any difficulty swallowing, unexplained coughs, sore throats, any of the symptoms associated with Gerd, they can help. It can do a simple EGD test that's very painless, and it can tell you whether or not you have any advanced stages of either Gerd or esophageal cancer. Last thing I'll say is that esophageal cancer is the fastest growing cancer in the United States. It's gone up about 600% in the last several years. So again, early diagnosis is critical. It's very similar to pancreatic cancer. If you don't detect early, the prognosis is very, very bad. So thank you, Andrea. I'll turn it back over to you for our guest speakers.
Fantastic, Skip. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, and thank you for your open commentary. We really appreciate you joining us tonight. So as Skip had mentioned, we did launch, Endogastric Solutions launched an awareness campaign called Walk for Walt to honor our friend and colleague, Walt Bride. As you know, he was very important to us. He was a salesperson here for the company. And there is a GoFundMe page. And so Karen's going to talk a little bit about the GoFundMe page for that.
Thank you, Andrea. The money for the GoFundMe is being raised for an educational fund for Ellison, Walt's daughter, and you'll actually get a chance to meet her later in the program. If you'd like to give, please see the QR code at the top corner of left of your screen. It's really easy. Just open your camera on your phone, scan the QR code, and it will bring you to the GoFundMe account. We really appreciate your support.
Thank you. Yes, and you will hear Carrie and Ellison in a few minutes or a couple minutes, and you'll hear the story about that. But before we keep going, I want to, we are going to do a giveaway. We are going to give away this Hook and Albert esophageal cancer awareness pin. We're going to give away 2 of them. So if you are watching tonight and you have been touched by this disease, whether or not you have a family member, it's yourself, please comment in the comment section, HOPE, and we will pick 2 people to receive one of these esophageal cancer awareness pins. So along throughout our program, we're also going to be giving away other things, and we will announce the winners at the end of the program. So keep listening in, and we will go ahead and move forward with that. So my next guest is Carrie Bride and Ellison Bride. Again, I welcome Carrie and Ellison. Thank you for being here today or tonight with us. We really appreciate it. And oh, and you've got your pins on too, so thank you. Like I mentioned, Walt Bride worked for Endogastric Solutions. He's very important to us and our family here, but more so, you know, to your family. Carrie, you know, can you tell us a few things about Walt, you know, that kind of made him so special to you and your family?
Well, Walt was very, very special, and he, if you knew him, you were special to him as well. and everyone that came in contact with him felt he was special in some way. He had no strangers. It's probably why he was so good at the job that he did, because you were touched after interacting with him, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, Walt was very passionate in what he did. You know, we saw it here at Endogastric Solutions. You know, I've had a lot of interactions with him, whether we were in a sales meeting or training, even on, you know, conference calls. He was always on there, and he was very passionate about what he did. Where did Walt get that passion from for work, for his job, for his life? Where did that come from?
Well, I don't think he would be upset if I told this. In fact, he told many people, but he wanted to go to med school and he couldn't pass calculus. And I think he realized that his talent was interacting with people, and he felt like this was the next best thing because he could be in the OR and he knew what he was doing made a difference and helped people.
Fantastic, thank you. And you know, as Skip had mentioned before, there were so many people who are touched by esophageal cancer. It's the fastest growing cancer right now, and there are a lot of people who are probably watching tonight that either are suffering or going through this with either themselves or their family. Do you have any advice that you'd like to give family members who have kind of gone through the same things that you have?
Listen to yourself, listen to that inner voice, ask every single question that you have. This is such an aggressive cancer that early detection is clearly key. And if you have symptoms, like as Skip said, do not ignore them. If you are diagnosed, they have to take the cancer out, and you have to be okay with aggressive treatments because we're battling something that's more aggressive. So,
yeah, thank you for that, Carrie. Now, Allison, I understand that you just won an award for an essay that you wrote honoring your dad at the 2021 Hope Ball for a local charity. Tell us a little bit about that award that you received.
So Angels of Hope works with a foundation, and it's housing for cancer patients' families. And at first I didn't want to do it because I didn't want to be around cancer. But then as I started to work with them and volunteer and help do fun events, decorate, and serve dinners, I realized it was a really, really great program. And I wish that we had that when we were going through it. So
that's wonderful. That's so great, and thank you for sharing that. Is there any words of encouragement that you would provide to anyone that kind of went through the same things that you did, you know, with your dad?
Praying is a big one. I don't know if it is, but praying, and then also talking to someone who's your own age and kind of just I'm not necessarily understands the problem, but just understands where you are in life and the effects it probably has.
Sure. You're a very strong woman, so that's great to hear. Now, lastly, you're a junior now in high school, right?
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay. And so it's, you know, we're getting close to you're probably starting to apply for colleges. Is there any college that you have your eye on or that stands out to you?
I really want to go to the University of Central Arkansas. They have an amazing psychology program, and that's what I want to pursue.
Yeah.
Or something
Wonderful.
Working with equine therapy.
Okay. Wow, that sounds great. Well, wonderful. Well, Carrie and Allison, I can't thank you guys both enough for joining us this evening. It means a lot to us and our mission to, you know, raise awareness for esophageal cancer. I know it means a lot to you as well. And again, everyone watching, I'm sure they appreciate you and your story and for taking the time to speak with us tonight. So thank you again for joining us, and you know, our hearts go out to you and your family.
thank you.
Have a good one.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So up next is going to be Dr. Gilbert Simone. So he will be coming soon. But before that, please watch the video that we're about to show. It is our Endogastric Solutions, some of our family, our employees and family members doing the virtual Walk for Walt.
I just finished my 5K in honor of Walt Bride.
I'm out walking in the memory of our friend and colleague, Walt Bride.
Out doing the Walk for Walt today.
I just finished a 5K run in honor of our colleague, Walt Bride.
So I'm out here running for the memory of my friend and colleague, Walt Bride.
Today we're going to try to start our virtual 5K in honor of Walt Bride.
And I'm out walking in the memory of our friend and Endogastric Solutions colleague, Walt Bride, to raise awareness about esophageal cancer and to encourage people to get scoped.
April is Esophageal Cancer Awareness Month. Over 20,000 new cases of esophageal cancer will be diagnosed in 2021.
While esophageal cancer is one of the rarer forms of cancer, accounting for 1% of total cases, it's actually the 7th leading cause of cancer deaths in men in the United States.
And did you know that Gerd is the leading cause to esophageal cancer?
It was a privilege to know Walt, and his time with us was too short. He had a smile that was a mile wide, and he lived his life and loved his family with grace and veracity.
Right after meeting him, one of the first things that he did was immediately start talking about his daughter and his family.
Walt was one of the most uplifting and positive people I've ever met in my life and had the opportunity of working with. And you know, it's extremely important to go get scoped early on because esophageal cancer may not present itself in its early stages.
So if you are somebody that has Gerd, or you know somebody that has Gerd, please don't ignore it. Don't try to take care of yourself. Go see a specialist.
Our Walk for Walt is to help remind people to get scoped to help prevent esophageal cancer.
So please join us in the fight against esophageal cancer to promote early detection and to honor Walt's legacy. If you have symptoms, don't wait. Talk with your doctor and get scoped.
Here's to a healthy and safe 2021.
Welcome back, everybody, and thank you for being here this evening. As you all remember, we are doing a live TIF talk, so at any time, if you have any questions, you still can comment or ask questions in the comment box. But today, I would like to introduce our special guest, Dr. Simone. Yeah. Welcome, and thank you for being here, as well as Lynn McFadden, who works here at Endogastric Solutions. Thanks for being here, Lynn.
Thank you.
So before we start, I do want to give you a little background on Dr. Simone. He is an interventional gastroenterologist and natural orifice surgeon who is board certified in both internal medicine and gastroenterology. He founded Advanced GI Inc. in 2006 with the mission of building patient trust and being the catalyst for a healthier lifestyle through prevention, early detection, and an innovative approach to GI care. Dr. Simone's special areas of interest include minimally invasive surgical treatment of Gerd, and other endoscopic interventions. Welcome, Dr. Simone, and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Andrea, and thank you, Lynn. Yes. I just wanted to thank Endogastric Solutions for making these TIF talks possible, and I appreciate that very nice introduction. And I want to thank all the audience and the previous guests and the guests that are coming. Yes. We have some very distinguished people that are going to be coming into this show. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Hope I can answer some questions
and
clear things up.
That would be great. Yes, but let's go ahead and start.
Sure.
Let's talk a little bit about Gerd and how Gerd relates to esophageal cancer, and then also how quickly it can progress.
Absolutely. So let me first tell the audience what Gerd actually is. So Gerd stands for gastroesophageal reflux disease. It's a condition where the contents of the stomach come up into the esophagus and cause irritation of the esophagus, and therefore causing diseases that will lead into esophageal cancer. One of the challenges that we have with Gerd leading to esophageal cancer is the fact that the symptoms of Gerd can be elusive. Right. We all think that Gerd equals heartburn. Sure. It doesn't. There are lots of other symptoms that are associated with gastroesophageal reflux disease. And unfortunately, recognition of those often leads to not being able to diagnose it properly, and then we end up with esophageal cancer. So the first issue that happens is that contents of the stomach that are caustic, they come up into the esophagus, they cause chronic inflammation. Right. Most cancers, not just esophageal cancer, but most cancers are related to chronic inflammation. Okay. So as this inflammation goes on, causes the cells in the lining of the esophagus to become more and more resilient to, or try to become more resilient to all these contents that are coming up. Sure. Therefore, creating a change that is like small intestinal mucosa or lining, and that is called Barrett's esophagus. Barrett's esophagus, if untreated or undiagnosed, will end up becoming esophageal cancer. Right. So one of the unfortunate aspects of development of esophageal cancer is the fact that it is not often diagnosed at an early stage. By the time patients have symptoms of esophageal cancer, which oftentimes has to do with difficulty swallowing, painful swallowing, weight loss, and feeling of food or pills getting stuck in the esophagus. By then, unfortunately, it's a lot of times it's too late for the treatment. Right. So it can progress fairly rapidly once you actually develop esophageal cancer.
All right. You know, so in your experience, what types of, you know, how does it present in patients, and like what should they do, you know, to ensure that they get checked or they know, you know, that Absolutely. They need to do something, if you will?
Of course. Yes. So gastroesophageal reflux disease, as I alluded, is not always heartburn. It can present what we call it in two major categories. We call them atypical symptoms and typical symptoms. Right. Typical symptoms, most people are aware of it. They kind of have an idea that it's related to gastroesophageal reflux disease, such as heartburn, regurgitation, burning sensation in the esophagus. So those are easy to diagnose and right. Easy to recognize. The challenge or difficulty in diagnosing GERD with these other symptoms, which are atypical symptoms, these are symptoms such as cough, right. sinusitis, chronic sinus issues, postnasal drip, having throat clearing all the time, right. Hoarseness of the voice. Right. These are all, or asthma, adult onset asthma, even dental erosions can sometimes be associated with gastroesophageal reflux disease. So if you have any of these symptoms, please, you need to see a gastroenterologist and make sure that you get checked. If you do have evidence of GERD or you have an anatomical defect that needs treatment, we can definitely offer that and prevent this very unfortunate disease.
Right, perfect, thank you. Maybe can you share what types of diagnostic testing that someone would endure if they were, you know, trying to, if you were trying to decide, do they have GERD, what's going on with them?
Absolutely. So very simple. You know, one of the first things that we do is endoscopy. Endoscopy is a 5-minute test. It literally takes that long. Patients are asleep when we do it. It's done with a flexible tube that's smaller than the girth of a pen. It has a light, it has a channel whereby we can actually take some biopsies. When the patients are asleep, we basically pass the endoscope through the mouth, through the esophagus. We look at any abnormalities. If we do see something, we take biopsies. Sure. And we also recognize one of the major issues that gives rise to GERD, such as a lower esophageal sphincter valve that could be incompetent, or even a hiatal hernia. We can diagnose it with an endoscope. Sure. If someone does have evidence of reflux or GERD and they have a hiatal hernia, the next step is, for me at least, is to evaluate their esophagus fully. I usually order an esophagram, which measures the dynamics of the esophagus to see how esophagus actually pushes things down. Sure. And the third evaluation that I do is a pH study, which gives me an idea of how much reflux a patient actually has. We get a quantification of the number of reflux episodes and if someone actually requires to have surgery. If all those match, then we offer patients the TIF procedure, which helps tighten up the valve, and it also helps fix the hiatal hernia.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you. And you know, I think we probably would be remiss if we didn't talk about what the TIF procedure is and how it works. So I'm going to let you explain how the TIF procedure works. And we are talking to a couple of patients who've had the TIF procedure today.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So TIF, you know, we have all these acronyms in medicine. I have to apologize for that, but I will explain it to you. So TIF stands for transoral, which is through the mouth, incisionless, which means without making any cuts. Fundoplication. Fundoplication is fixing of the fundus of the stomach, which is where the lower esophageal sphincter is. So during the TIF procedure, basically what we do is we approximate, or we bring together the outside walls of the esophagus and stomach together. We create what we call almost like a pleat, but this also goes around, and it really recreates what a natural valve is supposed to be like. So we essentially reshape the patient's loose valve into a natural, competent valve that prevents reflux.
Right. Thank you for that explanation. Yes. Do we have some questions, Lynn?
We do. We do. We have, can Barrett's esophagus be reversed?
Absolutely. Yes. There is. If we are able to reduce the reflux and take away the actual underlying reason for development of Barrett's esophagus, then technically you should be able to reverse Barrett's esophagus. As a matter of fact, anecdotally, and in just my experience, we have had patients who have had Barrett's esophagus and they had the TIF procedure. And you know, when we do their surveillance, the Barrett's esophagus had gone away.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you. More questions, Lynn?
And the next one, I think you addressed this, but does Barrett's esophagus regress, and how is it managed?
Yes, as I mentioned, yes, it can regress, especially if you take away the underlying issue that causes caused the Barrett's esophagus to begin with. And there are other treatments that we have if the TIF procedure, for instance, does not reverse the Barrett's esophagus over ensuing years. There is something called the halo procedure or the ablation procedure, where we actually go in and we burn off the cells or the Barrett cells. That way we can prevent progression of Barrett's esophagus. As I mentioned, Barrett's actually is the precursor to esophageal cancer. So it's very important to diagnose it and properly treat it. Absolutely.
Right. Thank you for that.
Of course.
We have another one from Virginia. Is DGL helpful for acid reflux?
Yes, there's been some studies that have shown that DGL does help with gastroesophageal reflux. We don't know the exact mechanism of how it exactly help with the symptoms of Gerd. It doesn't necessarily fix the underlying problem. It just reduces the symptoms of Gerd. So almost every drug and supplement and all these even anecdotal things that we hear about that helps with Gerd, they actually help with the symptoms. It's like a Band-Aid. So none of those drugs or medicines or herbal supplements actually fix the underlying problem.
Right.
They just reduce the symptoms.
Right.
Yep, exactly.
Thank you for that.
Sure.
Any other questions, Lynn?
What kind of lifestyle modifications or diet modifications can I make to help prevent Gerd from developing?
Excellent question. Some of the lifestyle changes which can be helpful, especially in this country, one of the major lifestyle changes is losing weight, staying away from things that actually cause the lower esophageal sphincter to become loosened, such as peppermints, spices, pepper, also reducing things that actually cause increased production of acid, such as alcohol, coffee, Of course, citrus, which is mostly citric acid, which is an acid that you're putting in, carbonation. So getting rid of all those things will help with the symptoms. The unfortunate issue with lifestyle changes and diet modification is that they help with reducing the symptoms, but again, they don't fix the underlying problem, which again has to do with the loose valve, especially if it's a congenital deformity, which a lot of times it is, and patients have a hiatal hernia. As time goes on, it actually gets larger, and we really need to recognize it and treat it early on. That way, we can prevent Barrett's esophagus and ultimately esophageal cancer.
Right.
Wonderful.
Perfect.
Thank you for that.
Any other questions, Lynn, right now?
Not right now.
Okay. Well, Dr. Simone, last question for you. What's your advice for people who are watching? I know you did mention a little bit earlier, but if there was one thing that they could do, what would you tell them?
Absolutely. The one thing is, if you have any of these symptoms that we described, you definitely need to get checked.
Right.
Number one issue with prevention of esophageal cancer is early detection and recognition of things that can lead to esophageal cancer, such as having a loose valve, hiatal hernia, having Barrett's esophagus. So please get checked. That's the number one advice. If you don't take any other take-home message, that would be my number one take-home message: to get checked, please.
Fantastic. Thank you so much,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Simone.
Thanks for having me.
And it's been a pleasure having you here. And if you're in the Southern California area, kind of what area are you in?
I'm in
Camarillo?
Ventura
County.
Thousand Oaks.
Thousand Oaks. You can visit Dr. Simone.
Sure.
If you are not and you are looking for a TIF trained physician, you can go on to gerdhelp.com, and we do have a physician finder there where you'll be able to put in your zip code or state, and you'll be able to find a TIF trained physician in your area. Again, Dr. Simone, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
We really
It's been a pleasure.
appreciate it. And then next up is going to be Mindy Mordecai, who is the president and CEO of ECAN. But before that, we have a very special story from one of our very own, one of the employees of Endogastric Solutions. Her name is Erin Slogger, and she has a story about her father who suffered from esophageal cancer, and you'll be able to watch this video, and we'll be right back.
My dad was James Michael McNair. He was born in Milton, Florida, which is a really, really teeny tiny little town. He graduated college with a degree in history. My dad was a real history buff, especially military history. He was very interested in military history. He was in the Air Force for about 15 years as a captain, and in the Vietnam War. My dad was a great outdoorsman. When we were growing up, he scuba dived and snorkeled, and he was a mountain climber. He joined the Mountaineers in Germany, and they went to Switzerland and climbed mountains. And he was an avid outdoorsman. He took us camping, he took us hiking. We went all over the place in Germany. We went to the Netherlands, we went to Switzerland, we went to Italy, camping on the beach. He was in very good health. He had a little bit of high blood pressure, but he was in good health. He was very active, so that helped. But he didn't know he had GERD because he had atypical symptoms. And so he knew he took Tums every now and again for heartburn, but there wasn't anything. He didn't have a cough. He didn't have any of, the burning sensation in the throat. He didn't have any of that. So he really didn't pay attention to it. When he was 70, he got a lump in his throat, and he didn't do much about that. He never went to the doctor, and had I been, I'm up in Seattle, he's down in Pensacola, he never mentioned it to me, and of course, where we work, I would have caught right on. So he waited a long time until he finally went to see the doctor about it. And when they did a biopsy, they just stayed in there because the surgeon knew already that it was cancer. And so they just kept him under, and, took care and tried to get as much of the cancer out as they could. Squamous cell carcinoma was the cancer. And I flew down, of course, to spend some time with him in the hospital. And he battled esophageal cancer for about 5 years before it finally took him. It ended up spreading to his lungs. And so he had to have his right lung removed. And then fortunately, because he's a retired military person, he was able, while he was getting radiation treatment, he was able to go into the barometric chamber, you know, for the bends on the Pensacola base there during his radiation treatment, and that kept him from losing his teeth after his radiation treatments. But more importantly than that, he got to sit in there with all of these young hotshot Navy divers, and he had a captive audience for at least 90 minutes. And he loved to tell his stories. But my dad could tell a story. Then when it finally spread to his lungs, 5 years later, he got pneumonia, and that's what he actually passed away from, was pneumonia at 75 on April 7th, 2014. My dad and I were very close, but it was most difficult because he was in Pensacola and I was in Seattle. So, but even when he talked to me on the phone, he never really talked about any health issues. I knew all the signs of esophageal cancer and GERD and everything that can come from having GERD and not having it treated and not getting scoped because of my work with EGS. I was very frustrated because I worked for a company that can prevent this. I worked for years with a company that could prevent this. And so it was very difficult for me to learn that someone I loved so much had this same thing. I think people don't really pay attention to things, and they don't. I remember teaching my daughter, who's a nursing student now, but when she was younger and she was going to the doctor for the first time on her own, you know, where I didn't go into the room, and I would say, you need to make a list of all the things you need to talk about. You need to organize your thoughts. You need to write them down so that when you get in there with this doctor, who you only have a precious few minutes usually, you can cover everything that you need to cover with them and you don't forget something. And you know, I wish my dad would have been a little bit more proactive in talking to his doctor about everything that was going on with him, because again, you have these atypical symptoms. You don't even realize that you are that you are developing cancer because you can't feel the burning. And a lot of times it takes that to get people scoped, but there are other things you can look for that your doctor knows all about. If you just tell them, hey, I have heartburn a lot, or I eat Tums every now and again. At his age, and the doctor could have said, well, how long has this been going on? Oh, I don't know, 30 years. Oh, well, then that's a key for the doctor to say, let's just take a look and see what's going on and make sure that everything is okay. So being in the industry for so long and knowing the symptoms of typical and atypical symptoms, and then having my father not go check out this lump in his throat when he should have, or even had talked to the doctor about his small symptoms of GERD, in time to be able to be a little bit more proactive about it. That was really heartbreaking for me. Really heartbreaking, because I know not just me, but all of the people at Endogastric Solutions who are working so hard to keep this from happening with their patients, and all the physicians who are, doing the TIF procedure and using our device to keep esophageal cancer from taking more loved ones from people.
Welcome back, everyone, and I hope you guys felt that story from Erin. She's wonderful, and the story of her father is very, very touching. I wanted to show you all the things that we're giving away today. Like I mentioned earlier, we will be giving away our esophageal cancer awareness pin, lapel. This can be put on your blazer. Some of us, if you watched earlier, our special guests were wearing their esophageal cancer awareness pin. And I did speak to everybody about the Walk for Walt event. We will be giving away this Walk for Walt t-shirt. Let me tell you a little bit about this event. It is a virtual 5K, and what we did as a company was had all of our employees go out and do their virtual 5K and film them on their virtual 5K walk in honor of Walt, and share their stories with us, their memories of Walt, and also why they want to ensure we raise awareness for esophageal cancer. Lastly, we will also be giving away our I Love Tiff tumbler. So some of you who watch or are regulars on our Tiff Talk Tuesdays, we've been giving away some tumblers, and today we will be giving a couple of these away as well. So in the next couple of segments, we'll be doing some trivia questions. So when you see the trivia question come up, all you need to do is answer the questions, and sometimes you may not know the answer. That's okay. This is really just bringing awareness around esophageal cancer. So when the trivia questions come up, go ahead and comment in the comment section your answers, and at the end of the program, we will go ahead and announce the winners for that. So I think we're ready now for Mindy Mordecai. Thank you, Mindy, for being here tonight. We really appreciate it. And for those of you who are watching, Mindy Mordecai is the president and CEO of Esophageal Cancer Action Network. And welcome, Mindy, and thank you for being here tonight. We really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you. So, Mindy, maybe you can tell the viewers a little bit more about your story and why you created this organization and what you guys are doing as a mission for ECAN.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. So I lost my husband to esophageal cancer 13 years ago. Our kids were 9 and 12 at the time, and I'll be honest with you, I was angry. I was just plain angry that my husband was going to die of a preventable disease. And I thought, well, if we could just make people aware that reflux could cause cancer, think of all the lives we could save. And as a simple matter, that sure sounds reasonable. You learn a lot about what you don't know when you start jumping into a field like this. But in the past 12 years, since I've been doing this work really full time, I gave up my career and jumped in and said, no one else was doing it, and it had to be done. And what we learned in the very beginning was, first of all, just telling people that you're at risk because you have heartburn doesn't mean they're going to have their disease detected, because you can't get an endoscopy just because you have heartburn. Right. It's not reasonable to expect every person with heartburn to have an endoscopy, and it's not without risk. And so, we realized that we needed more research. We needed better screening devices. We needed more information. I would go to medical conferences, and some of the gastroenterologists would actually come up at me at these conferences and say, what do you think? Everybody with heartburn should get scoped? And I said, no, I don't, but I want to know how you decide who you will scope, because I don't really see any reasonable method to make that determination. And if we did it based just on the numbers, the only people who would ever get checked are men over 60, and now maybe men over 50. But, we've lost lots and lots of women, and now we're losing many, many young people. A new study just came out end of last year, that showed that the number of early onset cases of esophageal adenocarcinoma has more than doubled in the last several decades. And so, and we had been seeing it over the course of, the past several years, younger and younger patients. And so many things needed to happen. In the very beginning, we realized that the National Cancer Institute was starting something they called the Cancer Genome Atlas, which was really a genome mapping project for cancers. And we weren't on the list. They were not going to map the genome of esophageal cancer. And we fought really hard to get esophageal cancer included in that TCGA, they call it. And as a result, just in the past couple of weeks, the FDA has now approved 2 immunotherapies, first-line immunotherapies for our patients with advanced disease. Our patients wouldn't have even been included in those studies if we hadn't been included in the TCGA. So for me, you know, I love knowing that progress is possible and that we're making progress. It's not about, you know, breaking my arm to pat us on the back, because what it's about is saying people can make a difference. And I think a lot of folks who've been affected by this cancer, because it's so deadly and we've had so few new therapies in so long, you become depressed, you feel hopeless. And finally, you know, this is Esophageal Cancer Awareness Month, and we've had the first Esophageal Cancer Awareness Month where I feel truly hopeful about the future for our patients. Because not only do we have these 2 new immunotherapies, we also have minimally invasive screening devices coming online. And so we're attacking this disease from 2 ends in a way that really makes a difference. And as an organization, you know, we've grown, we've helped a lot of families. We work really hard if someone's diagnosed to get them to good physicians. But, you know, we really try to work on that prevention end. And I think that's what, you know, what your organization's about, what your company is about, trying to help people before they get cancer, to address their reflux disease. And I think it's really, really important. And we're really grateful for the partners that we've had in the corporate community like EGS, and also doctors like Dr. Simone, who's been a longtime partner of ECANS. And so, you know, I started with the idea of raising awareness. We started Esophageal Cancer Awareness Month all those years ago.
You did.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And we did it thinking, you know, well, at least we have an excuse to shine a light once a year. But really what we've seen happen has been almost astonishing, something we really could not have anticipated, because companies like yours, businesses, governments, organizations, they've all picked it up and they're taking it and running with it and sharing the information. And that means that more lives are going to be saved. And that's our mission. Saving lives is the mission of the Esophageal Cancer Action Network. One of the things that we did in recent years is start an effort to get more research funding. You know, when I say we're a tiny organization, right now you're looking at half of us. So, you know, we have a very tiny staff. We have a wonderful board of directors. They're all volunteers. So really the full-time work is done by a really shoestring staff, and we have a huge agenda. So, you know, when I joke about working 24/7, but it's really pretty much the work I do. But one of the things that we realized was that we would never be able to raise the kind of money to pay for the kind of research that we needed, because first of all, fundraising is not my expertise, and it isn't even what we want to be doing so much as the advocacy piece. And what we discovered was that if we advocated in Congress, we could open doors for more research funding for our researchers. So a couple years ago, we went to Congress, we asked for esophageal cancer to be included in something called the peer-reviewed cancer research program that the Department of Defense runs, and we were successful. And usually it takes several years before you have success with that, but we were successful the first year. And this year, as a result of that, $4.5 million in cancer research funding came to esophageal cancer researchers that just wouldn't have happened otherwise. And as a tiny organization like ours, we never could have raised that kind of money to commit to research. And honestly, you know, how would we have known what research we should be funding, right? So we feel really very fortunate that we had advocates who are willing to reach out to their elected members of Congress to say esophageal cancer research funding matters. And we've been able to keep esophageal cancer in the program, not just that first year, which is where this funding this year came from, but we're in the program for this coming year. So if there are esophageal cancer researchers out there, there are funds available. You need to apply for them. Go to ECAN and we'll let you know how to get them. So we'll be looking for many more millions coming next year. And then we're working now to make sure we stay in the year after that. So, you know, it's a constant effort, because
the work doesn't stop
every year.
Yeah, the work doesn't stop.
No.
Well, everything that you're doing is fantastic. How long has the ECAN organization been around now?
So for 12 years. My husband died 13 years ago. We actually, you know, it started because my daughter, who was 12 when her dad died, she was a dancer and she wanted to do an event to raise funds to fight esophageal cancer. And so we held an event, we called it the Cancer Dancer, and had dance lessons all day long. And we did it for 1 year, then we did it another year, and people said, oh, well, what are you going to do next year? And I was exhausted. And I said, well, you know, holding events is really not what this is about for me. It's about raising awareness, and we need to do it more than just, I'm here in Baltimore. You know, we need to do this around the country, because it would be great to save the lives of people in Baltimore, but it's not enough. And so that's really how the organization started, with an idea that my daughter had. And we started working on it actually before my husband even passed away. We had thought he would be at our first event, but he took a terrible turn for the worse before we could ever hold the event. And so he passed away, and then 6 weeks later, we held our first event.
Wonderful. Well, I'm sorry to hear that and that you had to go through that. You had mentioned shining a light, and I know, I believe I heard a story that you guys had a couple of cities across the nation shine a light for esophageal cancer. Tell me a little bit about that.
So we reach out to monuments and buildings that, you know, you see them change the lights in their buildings different colors for different reasons. And so we've been very fortunate that last year and this year we've been able to get many buildings around the country to light up in periwinkle blue. Tonight, actually, it's in Oklahoma City, the Crystal Bridge Tropical Conservatory is periwinkle blue. And over the weekend, the planetarium in St. Louis, the McDonald Planetarium, we've had the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Wow. Next week, we'll have the NASCAR headquarters. I'm probably gonna, you know, I didn't keep my list in front of me, but we, you know, maybe 16 or 17 buildings in different cities around the country. And we have some of our volunteers reaching out and doing it. So we have one esophageal cancer survivor in Fort Wayne, Indiana, who has a bridge and a plaza lighted up at the end of the month for esophageal cancer awareness that he did the outreach for. So we encourage folks to get involved. We have lots of volunteers who reach out to their governors every year and get proclamations issued by their governor naming April Esophageal Cancer Awareness Month. This year we tried something a little different. We have yard signs for folks. They can buy on our website. We'll send you a yard sign you can put up that says heartburn can cause cancer, and it gives the website where you can go and download our free guide for patients that tells them about that link between cancer and reflux. And because when we first started this organization, when you tell people that heartburn can cause cancer, they would say, no, it can't.
Right.
And you know, we filed a petition with the Food and Drug Administration several years ago, trying to get warning labels placed on over-the-counter reflux medication and heartburn remedies. And in order to prepare for that, we hired a polling firm and tried to find out how many Americans even know that reflux can cause cancer. And what we discovered didn't really surprise us. It's sad news, but you know, only 16% of Americans know that reflux can lead to cancer. So that means 84% have no idea.
Right.
And
well, they're getting closer, right, with all of the work that you're doing.
Well,
so
we're working on it. My goal is I hope I can raise enough money to do another poll down the road and see if we're making a difference. But I do think that more people are becoming aware, and that's important. I think, you know, put a yard sign in your yard, everyone in your neighborhood will learn.
Absolutely.
And we do all we can. All of our wristbands, you know, we have periwinkle blue wristbands that we share with folks that say heartburn can cause cancer. And during Esophageal Cancer Awareness Month, we have a text a day service. So we'll text you a message every day that you can share with the people you love, or you can go to our Facebook page or other social media. We're EC Action Network on social media, and you'll find lots of shareable infographics and videos. We've got a nice public service announcement that Jeff Foxworthy did for us.
Oh,
he
nice.
did one of the you might be a redneck if jokes,
if you have heartburn.
Well, it was a great one. You know, I had asked him if he would do this, and I took a stab at writing it, which was not great. Luckily, we have a friend who unfortunately lost her brother to esophageal cancer, but her husband's a comedy writer, and that's how we knew Jeff Foxworthy. And so he rewrote it for us, and Jeff did it. And you know, he basically says, if you eat a bacon-wrapped chili dog for breakfast, you might be a redneck. But if you have heartburn and never tell your doctor, you might be risking your life. And that, to me, is really our message.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So before we wrap up, you had mentioned how can people get involved, and what advice do you want to give people that are watching tonight? I think you mentioned your website. If you want to make sure you let everybody know how they can get involved and reach your network, that would be great.
It's real easy because we're called ECAN, and that's what it is. It's ecan.org, ECAN, the Esophageal Cancer Action Network.org. And that's our website. And on social media, we are the EC Action Network. So we have a great Facebook community. We not quite as active on Instagram and Twitter, LinkedIn, but we're getting better on that. But in Facebook, we share a lot of research as well, and news you can use, stories about people affected by the disease. And I'm always inspired by our supporters. They do amazing work. And the thing that if I get to leave one message for folks who are watching,
yes,
you know, we don't always realize what a difference we can make. And if you understand, I remember when we first started the organization, my younger child was 9, and I went to her class, and I asked all these little kids, what if you had a secret that could save somebody's life? Would you share it with everybody else?
I love
How
that.
many of you would? And they all, of course, raised their little hands. And that's what I have to say to you.
Yeah.
You know, you have a secret that could save someone's life. Reflux can cause cancer. And most people do not know that.
Yeah.
And they will listen to people they know and they trust so much more than they'll listen to, you know, a PSA that we put out or anybody else. You have power. If you talk to the people you know, if somebody you know is living on Tums, tell them they need to get checked because you could end up saving their life.
Yeah. Wow. That was like perfectly said, Mindy. Perfectly said. We can't thank you enough for being here this evening and doing this with us. I know everybody that's watching really appreciates it. And as a partner of ECAN, Endogastric Solutions, we are so proud of all the work that you're doing, and we're happy to partner with you with everything. So thank you again for joining us this evening. We really appreciate it. And yeah, and if you can go to ECAN actionnetwork.org, you just mentioned
it's just ecan.org.
ecan.org. There we go. Sorry.
And then on social media, on Facebook, it's EC Action Network.
Action Network. There we go. So thank you again, Mindy, for joining us. We appreciate it. Have a great evening. And it was a pleasure speaking with you today. Next up is going to be our special guest, Dylan Grove, who is a TIF patient. And we will also have Jeff Grove on with us, who is his father and also an employee of Endogastric Solutions. But before that, we will be doing that trivia I was just talking about. So remember to comment your answers in the comment section of Facebook, and we will be picking some winners for our giveaways. Thank you very much. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight. As I had mentioned, we have our special guest, Dylan Grove. Dylan, welcome, and thank you for being here today. And we have the pleasure of having in studio with us Jeff Grove, who happens to be Dylan Grove's father and also an employee at Endogastric Solutions. So, Jeff, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Andrea.
Okay, well, let's go into it. Let's talk to Dylan. If you are an avid TIF talker or TIF talk watcher, you may have already watched Dylan's story, or if you're on our Gerd Help page and also our YouTube page, we did a montage of Dylan's story, but we actually have him here live today. And you know, Dylan, tell us a little bit, how long were you suffering again with Gerd?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I would say probably started when I was like 9 or 10 years old. I didn't know that's what it was now, but eating like spaghetti sauce and stuff like that, I definitely had symptoms. And then, you know, as a teenager is when I started taking Zantac and Tums because the heartburn would be so bad. It would wake me up in the middle of the night. You know, and I was obviously on a teenage diet, but, you know, still, it was like, it was still excessive. Even if I would just eat an orange or drink lemonade, it was, you know, I had really bad heartburn. And so my entire teenage years, I was on Zantac, like a lot of Zantac, all the time. And I always made sure I had it. And that really progressed through my early 20s. The first time I saw a doctor for Gerd, they just prescribed me, you know, put me on omeprazole. And I mean, that's really what it was for years, you know. I mean, tons of Zantac as a teenager and then tons of omeprazole as a young adult. And then, I mean, all the way up until I had surgery. I don't know if you want me to go into...
Yeah, well, I was just going to ask you next. When did you had your surgery? What was the date of your surgery?
It was August.
A few months out. Now.
August 21st of 2020.
Right. All right.
Yeah.
So I know that I think in talking to you and previously and when we were interviewing you, one of your biggest fears was your Gerd, you know, potentially progressing to something worse, such as esophageal cancer. Tell us a little bit about that story.
Yeah, definitely. You know, I think Mindy was talking a lot about, you know, there's a stigma behind heartburn that it's not very serious, and that everybody in America gets heartburn, and, you know, it's not that big of a deal, and, you know, you just take Tums. And so I kind of, you know, that's the information I was given as well, even from medical professionals. You know, I was just told to up my dose of PPIs and, you know, Tums and all that stuff. And so I was left to do my own research because the professionals I was seeing weren't answering my questions, no matter how severely I reported my symptoms. And so left to my own research, I started going down, you know how those Google searches, how they go eventually. And
I do actually.
Yeah, so I read a lot about Barrett's esophagus and how, you know, and how fatal that can be over time, and then esophageal cancer, and just how, you know, the esophagus is not designed to be under that kind of stress and pressure for that long. And then I thought, well, I've had heartburn for, you know, 10, 11, 12 years, however long it had been. And yeah, it was scary. And it was even more scary that I wasn't being given a solution by anyone. You know, I wasn't.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, that's.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Dylan. And, you know, Jeff, as an employee of Endogastric Solutions and, you know, obviously knowing a lot about Gerd and a lot about the TIF procedure, you know, what kind of advice did you give, you know, Dylan, your own son that's suffering from the one disease that we could help? What was kind of the advice that you know, like let's say all the people that are watching that have Gerd are your son, your kids. What would you tell them?
Well, one thing that Mindy said in the previous segment about the awareness of reflux causing cancer, I didn't know it was still that low. I thought we were at least maybe 30–40%, but she said 16%. So when Dylan was growing up, he alluded to the fact that 9–10 years old, spaghetti sauce, and through his teenage years, I didn't work for Endogastric Solutions back then. I didn't know anything about Gerd or reflux. So we just took the advice we got from physicians and PPIs and Zantac and thought it was okay. No one ever said get scoped or you might have Barrett's, you need to get that checked. I mean, we never really heard those words. I started learning all about that when I came here to work for EGS.
Right.
So I've been very aware of it for over 10 years.
Yeah.
So when Dylan came to me in February of last year and said, what can I do? I'm getting all this, everybody's telling me I'm fine. I'm taking medicine, it's not really working. And so we got endoscopy done in GI clinic up there. And again, they said he didn't really have anything wrong with him. They didn't see Barrett's, he didn't have a hiatal hernia. So I said, well, you have all the symptoms, they're all correlated to reflux. So I had him come to UC Irvine and have an in-depth workup with Dr. Kenneth Chang, and he got a much better informed perspective from there, and we were able to move forward with the TIF procedure.
Right.
And I'll let Dylan speak to how that went and how he feels now.
Yeah. Yeah, Dylan, there you go. Dad's cueing you already.
Great.
Tell us.
I will just say quickly that, I was texting my dad. I mean, Dad, you can say, like, I was sending him text messages very frequently, very discouraged and very miserable and unhappy because of how severe it was. It was like 24/7, and it had bled into every aspect of my life. My personal relationships, talking to people. I'm a counselor for a living, so like I was hard to talk. It was bad, and yeah, I finally, the first endoscopy I got from a GI clinic here, they told me that I had nothing wrong. I had no hiatal hernia, no sign of Barrett's esophagus, nothing was wrong. Even though I sat there and told him, told the doctor that the symptoms were severe. So fast forward, I went and saw Dr. Chang, and immediately within my first like Zoom with Dr. Chang, I felt relief because he said, I have a solution for you. I see what the problem is. We're going to fix it, and so I felt very confident that I was going to be okay. And then, it was shortly after that I had surgery. And ever since then, GERD's not an issue for me anymore. I haven't taken a PPI or an H2 blocker since the day I had surgery, or since like a week after I had surgery, because you're supposed to take them for a little bit, but I haven't taken one single medication. And
Dylan, that's amazing.
And I ate
that's amazing.
The spiciest, craziest stuff you could even think of.
Your burritos that you miss so much. You're back to your normal diet before without, heartburn or any symptoms?
I haven't had any heartburn at all. It's been it's really, I remember the first live stream I did with you guys and Dr. Chang, and I can't remember if you asked me or Dr. Chang asked me about what GERD was like for me now, and I was like, it kind of feels like it never was an issue. It's just, it's not, it's all better now.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, we spent Easter with Dylan and his girlfriend Amber, and went out to dinner a couple times, and it was the first time I'd seen Dylan just go down the menu and get whatever he felt like getting.
Really?
And not wait. He used to wait for everybody to order and study the menu to decide what he could get that wasn't going to cause him reflux.
That's crazy.
And just drink water, never soda or anything like that he might enjoy for a meal.
Wow.
So there was zero worry about that. It was fun to go out and do that and not watch him suffer through that.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Absolutely.
Well, Dylan, thank you for your story and sharing it with everybody. Another kind of, I want to get to you, Jeff, in regards to not only having a family member suffering from GERD, but you also knew Walt Bride very well.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any special story that you want to share for his memory, or?
Well, I did the video, little clip for our campaign this month for Walt. And Walt and I went back pretty far because he came on, he was with the company when I came in 2010. And then he stayed, we worked together about 4 years. It was when the company was very small.
Right.
So everybody knew.
We're still very small, but in all relative.
Just imagine a fifth of that. So Walt and I became sort of like brothers in arms there, trying to create a business, so to speak. and got pretty close to him just on a collegial business level. And then he left, and then he came back. But I've said this before, Walt always said that EGS was his home. He was really glad to come back. And the last time I saw him in 2019 at the NSM, he was just so grateful. He was kind of a changed man, but still the same Walt, but very grateful to be healthy and living. And you know, you never saw Walt down or in a bad mood or complaining.
Oh, always a smile on his face.
Exactly, and that's how I remember him,
yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Jeff, for being here with us today.
Thanks
and Dylan, thank you so much for taking time out of your day and joining us. We appreciate it and are so happy to hear your story and hear that you're doing better now after your TIF procedure. So thanks again for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Of course, yeah.
So,
thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Next up is going to be another patient story. His name is Mike. And before we get with him, we have a little video, another quick video from one of the Endogastric Solutions employees as well, a sales rep that knew Walt and his story, real quick story about Walt. We'll be right back.
So Walt, the guy's impossible not to love. I mean, we hit it off right away. I mean, probably because we're both older than some of the other PDMs in the company. We're both married, we both have kids, so there's a lot in common. When Walt was diagnosed with esophageal cancer, it was heartbreaking. To me, the team, you know, especially considering what we do for a living, you know, we hear about the dangers of it, and then to have someone on our team, especially someone we, you know, that was so well respected, was absolutely heartbreaking. The Walk for Walt was just such a great idea. I know a lot of us had reached out to Skip and asked him, is there something we can do? Is there something? I'd even suggested, can we set up a scholarship where we voluntarily take money out of our paychecks? And I know we went to the board and we're trying to find ways to do it. And he had called me when they made the decision before it was announced. He's like, hey, just to let you know, there are things being done. So when they announced it, it's just, what a great feeling. I mean, it's a testament to our company to take care of employees, even ones that have left us. It was just great. So one great story about Walt, as he started to get a little bit sicker, he had reached out to me and said, hey, can you fly down to Tallahassee to cover a case for me? And, you know, absolutely. I was like, anything I can do for you, Walt. And typically when that happens, you know, you just email the PDM, you know, what hospital, the dates, surgeon that's doing the procedure, and you know, and then you go down and do it. Walt met me at the airport, drove me to my hotel. He let me drop off my bags, and he's like, I'm gonna take you to lunch. And I was like, Walt, you know, obviously, you know, I'm here to cover for you. You know, if you're not feeling well, go home and get some rest. He's like, no, I insist. Takes me to lunch. He didn't even eat. He just sat there and watched me eat with a smile on his face. Then he takes me to the hospital, walks me through and introduces me to everybody that I'd be working with for the next couple of days. I mean, who does that? I mean, it's just a testament to the character that Walt had. So for EGS to start the Walk for Walt in honor of him and his family, and also to help raise awareness for esophageal cancer is just awesome.
Welcome back, everyone. Thank you again for joining us for this live TIF Talk Tuesday, special edition for esophageal cancer awareness. We have a very special guest, a patient, actually a TIF patient, and his name is Mike. Mike, thank you for being here tonight with us this evening. Thank you.
Sure enough. Thank you.
You're welcome. We also have Jeff here. Jeff Grove actually works with your physician who did your TIF procedure, or I should say physicians that did your hiatal hernia repair and TIF procedure. So Jeff, Mike, tell us a little bit about your journey. You had a pretty interesting story. You actually were diagnosed with Barrett's esophagus, which is, as we're all talking about, is a precursor for esophageal cancer. Tell us a little bit about your journey with Gerd.
Sure. I think I really noticed that I was having a severe amount of heartburn in my early 20s, and it really manifested with having Rolaids and Mylanta like available after every meal. Like I really needed that, and then I'd have to have it on the nightstand at night because I was finding myself having it so much. And so I'm a little bit older than your son, Jeff, but the thing that was interesting is that in the 80s there were no solutions. In the 90s there were no solutions, and so even though I went to the doctors, they said, well, just change your diet, and I liked spicy food, and so nothing really worked for me, and I just stuck with lots of Mylanta, and as I said, that kind of thing looked the way my life looked like. And the idea of having an endoscopy to look inside and see what was going on didn't really even come up until I was in my 50s, when it was really time to do a colonoscopy.
Sure.
And so the doctor that I went to actually performed the endoscopy and the colonoscopy, and I was concerned about the colonoscopy, and they said, no, there's great news, your colonoscopy is fantastic.
Right.
The really bad news is your endoscopy is horrible. And he showed me the pictures of it, and my esophagus was really black.
Yeah. Oh.
And he said, this is called an Barrett's esophagus. This is a real serious condition. And he referred me to Dr. Wynn, who she pretty much went in there, and we looked at what are the different options. And at that time, it was still a little bit early, I think. TIF wasn't really available per se, sure. And we looked at maybe links, and we looked at what other kinds of things. But every time she went in, we did off the old tissue and see if it would come back, and we did the testing with the sensors, so many different things. Nothing seemed to make a difference. There was a constant spewing of acid on the esophagus, and as as we said, the Barrett's, the esophagus started to change its characteristics, and it was really precancerous, high dysplasia, as they call it. And the news was always bad news. It was always bad every single time, and we checked in every 6 months. Bad news, bad news. And she used to say, "This is scaring me," and I'd leave with my wife, and we'd both be in tears. And then it came a time where I actually wound up having a heart bypass, and I had to stop seeing Dr. Wynn for about 16 months. And then once I got back, I said, it's time, let's get this done. And she was just like, we have something we can do now. And the conversation was really TIF and esophagectomy. And esophagectomy was not a nice conversation, scared me even more. But she said, I want you to talk to the surgeon. And I didn't really understand what she had said, because of course when you do these conversations, you get a little concerned. So I went to see the surgeon, and the conversation was about doing a TIF procedure with hiatal hernia, which I was so relieved. I said, aren't we here for an esophagectomy conversation? He said, no, we just spoke. Dr. Wynn and I, this is the right thing for you. This is the best procedure. So let's talk about that. And we talked about it, and I'll tell you, it was like we were like a bat out of hell after that. And I had my procedure on December 26th. We jammed everything in 2019, and since that time, and the procedure, it was like I was so scared. It's nothing. It was literally nothing. I was in the hospital one day, no pain, and then it was 6 months later. No Barrett's, all gone. No irritation of the TIF, nothing. It was really, I could cry. It was just all good news. And then I had another one a year later. 6 months later for a full year, and it was beautiful. And the doctor says, don't come back for 5 years. And I'll tell you, I'm saying this now, I got chills, because what was there was just. It was awful news. It was scary. I was walking around with a bomb waiting to go off, and this was just like it was like manna from heaven.
Wow, Mike, that is incredible. And Jeff, maybe you can elaborate a little bit. Maybe some people that are watching, he was talking about seeing Dr. Nguyen, who's a gastroenterologist, but also having to meet with a surgeon and the TIF. Maybe you can just describe briefly what that TIF is, the combination hiatal hernia repair and the TIF procedure.
Yeah, sure,
And why two surgeons actually do it, or two physicians actually do it. So maybe you can explain that a little bit.
Yeah, I could do that. Mike, that was great hearing your story again. And yeah, Dr. Nguyen was introduced to TIF in 2018, November-ish. So that was probably when you were on your journey to have your heart bypass done, and then you got back to her later. And really what CTIF means is it's concomitant hiatal hernia with TIF, right? So it's the two procedures done at the same time. Because the endoscopic device can only address small defects, right? And yours is probably larger. And that probably was what led to Barrett's, is just having a larger hernia and lots of reflux over time. I think that probably resonates with lots of people that are watching now or will watch this later. So we found out with a lot of research over the years that TIF does a great job. It builds the best valve. It doesn't have side effects. But patients with bigger defects can't just have a TIF. They have to have that bigger defect fixed first. And so when you went to see Dr. Pearlstein, that's where his role comes in. And I know him really well now, and he's somebody who's very passionate about doing that for the patient so they can be set up to have the perfect valve rebuilt by the GI doctor with the TIF device. So just in a nutshell, that's really what it is. Those two specialties working together to address the whole entire anatomy to get the best outcome.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. I appreciate that. Mike, you know, one of the big things that we do here at Endogastric Solutions is try to educate as many people that are out there. And there's this common thread that you hear from a lot of our special guests, and it's, you know, be aware. And I always say, be an advocate for yourself. But if you had, you know, words of advice for people who either have Barrett's or, you know, Gerd, what would you say to them, or what would be your words of advice for them?
I think the most important thing I could say is, and I've said this because I have a good friend who's been taking PPIs since he was 20 years old, and he's the same age as I am. So, you know, we're about 60, and he has never had an endoscopy, and he's taking PPIs, and he's still having reflux, and he doesn't know how serious it is, and so, you know, I think the conversation today is that heartburn is not. Let's not call it that. Let's call it like, hey, this is like life burning up, or this is something more, because it really is serious, and we just kind of like, well, okay, everybody gets heartburn, and I think it's because we characterize it in such a very simple way. It doesn't bring the fear of God into this thing, like I got when, you know, when Dr. Nguyen talked about esophagectomy and removing my entire esophagus, which was, I couldn't do that, especially after heart surgery. I said, oh my God, two massive procedures in my life. I said, I can't do this. There's got to be an easier way. And you know, so I think the only thing I would ever say is, don't take anything for granted. It's not simply heartburn. It really is something more serious, and please do get it checked. Endoscopies are so easy to do. It's nothing to be afraid of.
Yeah, wonderful, Mike. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. How are you feeling today now? You know, you're almost 2 years out, is that right? Or a year and a half?
16 months out, and I'm happy. I'm very happy. You know what? As a matter of fact, I probably gained about 10 pounds, if not more, not just because of COVID, but because all of a sudden I got to enjoy all the old foods again. And so now I'm being more appropriate, taking care of myself more so because of the COVID. But, you know, I went back into spicy food the way I used to love it. And, you know, it's just been wonderful. I drink coffee twice a day. Couldn't do that for a long time. And so.
Do you ever take any PPIs anymore, or any Tums, or I mean, every now and then?
Yeah, what I found was that initially I stayed on it for almost 6 months because we wanted to make sure that there was no Barrett's. And then they said, go ahead and slowly come off it.
Wean off of it.
And I did that, and I didn't do it well, so I started to feel things. But now it's all wonderful, and there's no problems at all anymore.
Fantastic. Well, again, thank you so much for telling your story, and I know everybody that's watching really appreciates to hear from real patients. So thank you for joining us this evening, and also Jeff, thank you for joining us and kind of talking through. I know you work with the physicians closely, and I know at last TIF talk we were on, I think you were cheersing with Dr. Nguyen, and with a glass of wine with Dr. Nguyen and Dr. Pearlstein. You're like, I can drink it now.
I've become a little bit of an internet sensation. People call me now and check in with me on Facebook and that kind of thing. And I really am an advocate.
That's awesome.
I love you guys. This needs to be talked about much more. I think it's just a wonderful procedure, and I just really hope that the word gets out.
Wonderful, thank you. And I know that you are actually a pretty active member in one of the Facebook groups. So some of you that are watching may have talked to Mike, and this is him in the flesh.
Okay.
So thank you again, Mike, for joining us. We really appreciate it. Have a great evening, and we'll catch you next time. And then those of you who are watching,
thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Jeff. We've got another trivia. Another chance to win one of our prizes that we have. So you can just answer the questions in the comment section, and we will be picking our winners. So we will be right back, and we're about to announce all of the winners from all of our prizes or giveaway that we've done. So thanks again, and we'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone, and thank you for joining us again on our TIF Talk special edition for esophageal cancer awareness. I've got Karen here with me and Lynn here with me, and before we conclude for the evening, I hope you enjoyed our session tonight and you were able to take away from the stories that were told in regards to not just Walt, but with everything that we're doing to try to raise awareness for esophageal cancer. For us, it's very touching. I know for not only all three of us work for Endogastric Solutions and everybody that you met, Skip Baldino, from the bottom of our heart, please, if you are suffering from GERD, there are treatment options, and we encourage you to be an advocate for yourself and do what you need to do to find a treatment option that works best for you. So, with that said, and before we close, we do want to announce a couple of winners for our giveaway. The first giveaway that we're doing is the lapel pins that I showed you earlier, and we have two winners. And Karen, who are our two winners?
Our two winners are Catherine Coe-Ray and Madeline Donovan.
Fantastic. Well, congratulations to you both. We will be reaching out to you. It'll either come from Karen, myself, or Lynn, and also another team member. Her name is Wendy. So if you hear from any of us through Facebook, we will reach out to you to get your information and send you what you won. The other prize is going to, for the Walk for Walt t-shirts that we're giving away, and it was the trivia, so I don't know how many of you got anything right, but Lynn, who are our winners for that?
We have Virginia Raina Harrow and Vicky Saylor Pickens.
Fantastic.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, and again, someone will reach out to you and get your information so we can send you your winning prize. And then lastly, we had that last trivia question, or trivia if you will, and who are our winners? And that was for the tumbler, the iHeart TIF tumbler. So who are our winners? I think you each got one, so go ahead, Karen.
Our winner is Georgianne Allen.
Fantastic. Congratulations. And
winner number 2 is Donna Welsh Brandt.
Fantastic. Wonderful. Well, congratulations, and we'll reach out to you as well to get the information and get you your prize. So again, I can't thank you all enough for joining us for this special edition TIF Talk. We really appreciate you tuning in, and we do these TIF Talks every week. Sometimes we do them twice a week, but they're usually on Tuesday nights around 5 o'clock Central, depending on where you're at. But all you need to do is follow us on our GERDhelp.com Facebook page. We also have a YouTube channel. If you're watching from YouTube, welcome. And we also have our website, GERDhelp.com. We have a lot of information in regards to GERD. We can connect you to physicians in the area, in your area, for the TIF procedure, or just if you want to learn more and educate yourself on what GERD is and what are the treatment options. So please visit us, follow us on Facebook and YouTube. And before we conclude this evening, we are closing with a little Walt Bride Memoriam, if you will.
Tribute.
So a tribute to Walt. As we had mentioned, he is very close and dear to our hearts. He all worked with us here at Endogastric Solutions and means a lot to us. So thank you again for joining us, everybody, and we will catch you next Tuesday for our TIF Talk. Thank you and have a great evening. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Hold me dear, just a little while longer. If I lose my way, remind me not to wonder. The touch of your hand reminds me to breathe. I know I'll be fine if if you're next to me. There'll be hazards